Here's the thing. When Tom Brady was with the Patriots, there was conversations like, hey, I want to play till I'm 45. Everyone kind of laughed. Well, now, recently, he talked about that he could play till he was 50 or 55 because the physical part of it wouldn't be an issue for him. So if he says he could play till 55, and the physical part of it's not going to be a problem, then what we're talking about is the sacrifice that he has to do in the rest of his life. And Seth Wickersham's book, who was in Jenna's newsread, does a great job outlining the sacrifice that everyone around Brady has to make to allow him to be great. And that feels like a tax on your overall life. And I know that, like, from the sports media perspective, a lot of times our analysis is strictly between the lines. And it feels awkward to sort of try to analyze someone's life outside the lines. But the book does a good job, it's nuanced, on how much sacrifice it takes of Tom Brady. They call it Tom time versus family time. That sometimes there's stories in the book where, rather than spending time with your family, you have to, crush tape. And that just takes a toll on you. So, Greg, I wouldn't be surprised if he decided, you know what? This chapter of my career, my overall career, is over. I've got several documentaries in production. I just released a clothing brand. I got my whole TB12 empire. He still has a rich and fulfilling life outside of football. I think it's very plausible if he loses this game, he could retire.
It's definitely on the table, and I think of what you said last, the clothing brand, all of those things are, in my opinion, reasons why he would want to continue to enhance that brand, to cement that brand, even though he's Brady and he's the GOAT and all those things. But what he started, he wants to completely cement. He wants to be able to bring these new young ball players on board to support his brand, to pretty much be the face of his brand. And so you start to lose a little bit of that blazing fire if you're no longer in front of the screen the way we've always seen him. However, when I think about reasons why he would, all of that is great. Family is great. He's been able to manage that. One thing he has not been able to control is personnel and relationships and what they decide to do. When you think about the Buccaneers, this was a destination that was put together. Everything was in place. We weren't considering them an older team with guys potentially walking away with contracts. He got everybody to come back. However, are they going to be able to retain Todd Bowles to where that defense still has the same leadership at the defensive coordinator position? Are you going to be able to retain Byron Leftwich, the relationship that he's sitting in every single day? He obviously enjoys being around Byron. They have a great rapport. They understand one another. Those are the types of relationships that I believe that could allow this to be Brady's last dance, if you will, or last game if they end up losing, because the players come and go. And I believe he can find guys to try to come on board. But the coaching, that changes when you start switching up the leadership positions in critical roles like that. So those are the reasons why I believe in this is not as good of a team, in my opinion. I know, Chris, you're gonna say different than as they were last year.
Well, no, Greg, I think you make some great points. Like, I do think Brady would like to sit back this offseason and see what they do next year. And actually talk with the front office and Bruce Arians about, let's get this guy, let's get that guy, let's shore up this and that. Like, he's at this stage, there's no way he's coming back to play unless he fully believes we can win another Super Bowl. Like, that's the only reason he's playing. And I think he will be back. All of this is speculation. Even Seth Wickersham, the great reporter, he started out his comment with, this is just a hunch. All right, so these guys are just speculating. They're not hearing rumblings around the league. It's not educated, speculation. They're just throwing it out there in their own thoughts. But Brady has always said, I want to play. He said, until I stink. I'll use the word stink, right? I don't want to be out there when I stink. All right, clearly, he doesn't stink. He led the league in most categories for quarterbacks this year, had one of his best statistical seasons ever. He said, I only want to play as long as I believe I can lead a team to great heights. He's still in that condition. He's always set out the number 45. I want to play till I'm 45. That would be playing next year. Not to mention, he's also under contract for next year. So I think those are all reasons that he will come back. Now, he would go out if he retired after this season, even if they lose on Sunday. He would go out on top, Nick. And there's something romantic about that, right? But we've seen very few guys do it. We've seen very few guys do it. Now, people point to Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, but I would say they were in bad situations. They were in a losing franchise with Detroit and a losing team with no light at the end of the tunnel. We point back to Jim Brown. And Jim Brown, I think, had regrets. Jim Brown, at 48 years old, was challenging Franco Harris to a 40-yard dash. So I don't think, look, at 44, 45 years old, I watched it on TV. You weren't born yet, but 44, 45 years old, that's still young. In real life, that's still young. In real life, it's young. And so why not play until you can't anymore, or at least you get close to you can't anymore before you settle down and retire and have 50 years of life ahead of you?
Yep. So here's my theory on this, because he had set an actual benchmark. I want to play till I'm 45. And his play has not tailed off at all, and he's months away from being 45. So why would these rumblings even be out there? And Wildes, here's what I came up with. Even after winning the 6 Super Bowls, he had boxes to check. I do wonder if he's now checked them all. So let's think about it. The question of Brady versus Belichick, no longer a question. He answered that year one. Okay. Oh, there's a hot new young kid on my corner named Patrick Mahomes. What if I played his team in the Super Bowl and he was bad and I was great? Like, will that dead that conversation maybe forever? Certainly for, 20 years? Yeah. Check that one off. Oh, okay. What if I prove, even without getting to 45, the TB12 method works inarguably? Even if I think it's arguable, I think that he has so what do the other older quarterbacks look like at the end? Well, Breeze lost to me, melting down. Big Ben's final entire last season was sad. He's a half decade younger than me. And I know, so check that box off. Nobody's going to say, oh, Brady. Okay, so does he think, I know Broussard said he should win the MVP. He's almost assuredly going to finish second. Rodgers going to win it. But even if they don't win the Super Bowl, if the 2 years without Belichick, he wins the Super Bowl beating Mahomes, beating Breeze, beating Rodgers, beats them all, and then the next year he almost wins the MVP, that is going out on top. That is proving everything he had to prove. And there is an element of, even though it would be unfair, that if he were to come back for his age 45 season and be average, that would, I don't think it'd be a fair black mark. I don't believe legacies can go backwards. But I do think there would be the memory of Brady being not Brady. If he were to leave this year, there's no memory of him ever being bad. In fact, it's that he left a lot of meat on the bone. But there is an element of, Wildes, when I did the quarterbacks with the most to gain list, and I put Brady last, essentially, there is an element of the billionaire who at 70 is still working, and then the people around him say, buddy, for what? And sometimes those guys work till they die. Sometimes they're like, you know what, you're right. I can't take it with me. And the gap between him and every other quarterback in Super Bowls is so massive now that you have to do Montana plus Aikman Super Bowls to tie Tom, that there is an element of, what am I doing this for? And I do think, Wildes, I think Wickersham and Simmons putting this out in the ether is super noteworthy. But I know Seth knows Tom. I've listened to Bill for 15 years. He seems to occasionally drop in little nuggets like, oh, I was going to be at, a party that Brady was at, and that was like a decade ago. Now, I assume Tom and Bill are shopping for the same type of real estate after Bill sold his company. Like, I think he knows him. And it just seems noteworthy to me that those two people are dropping these little breadcrumbs.
The only one caveat, not to untie my whole original point, is Tom Brady, great winner, terrible loser, Jenna. So I could see him having actually like a plan, like, you know what, if it doesn't go my way. But then on the field, the guy doesn't even shake hands with other quarterbacks. Right? Like, he's a bad loser. And that's what keeps him on the edge.
That's
so I could see him having a
that
whole
if he
plan,
loses, he comes
losing,
back.
and then be like, you know what, skip that plan. We're headed back. So either way.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.